Exclusive. Leading conservation groups clash with Labor's anti-nature rhetoric. A brewing conflict pits prominent environmental organizations against the Labour Party's leadership, exposing a chasm between political rhetoric and public sentiment regarding environmental protection. The RSPB, Royal Society for the Protection of Birds, the National Trust, and the Wildlife Trusts, organizations synonymous with British heritage and conservation, are leading the charge, demanding MPs amend the controversial Planning and Infrastructure Bill. Their central argument: the bill scapegoats nature for systemic planning failures, a narrative amplified by the Labour leadership. The organizations accuse Reeves and Keir Starmer of employing harmful anti-nature rhetoric, a stance they believe fundamentally misrepresents public opinion. Starmer's labeling of environmental objectors as blockers is particularly criticized, viewed as a simplistic and divisive tactic that ignores the complexities of balancing development with environmental preservation. This rhetoric, the organizations argue, undermines the crucial role of nature in sustainable growth and national well-being. The Chancellor and Prime Minister would do well to remember that nature does not block growth. It is the very foundation on which growth is built, emphasized Matt Brown of the Wildlife Trusts, encapsulating the core disagreement. This statement highlights the fundamental misunderstanding at the heart of the conflict, the false dichotomy presented between economic development and environmental protection. These are not mutually exclusive. Rather, a thriving environment is a prerequisite for long-term sustainable economic prosperity. The conservation leaders have actively engaged with government ministers, striving for robust protections for vital ecosystems and endangered species within the new planning framework. Their concerns extend to the safeguarding of crucial habitats, such as rivers and the unique chalk streams found primarily in southern and eastern England, as well as threatened species like dormice, otters, and badgers. However, despite these efforts, a significant breach of trust has emerged between the government and these respected charities, a consequence of perceived disregard for their expert input and environmental concerns. The government's stated aim is to unleash a building boom, aiming for 1.5 million new homes by the end of the current parliament. This ambitious target is underpinned by a proposed overhaul of environmental assessment processes, promising a more effective and streamlined system that reduces costs and delays for developers, while still protecting the environment. This claim, however, is met with skepticism by the conservation groups, who fear the proposed changes will significantly weaken environmental protections. Reeves' repeated framing of nature as an impediment to growth further fuels the conflict. Her statements, such as the government needing to focus on getting things built and stop worrying about the bats and the newts, are seen as dismissive and inflammatory, demonstrating a fundamental lack of understanding or disregard for the interconnectedness of ecological systems and human well-being. This rhetoric is not just politically damaging. It risks severely compromising the UK's environmental heritage and long-term sustainability. The conservation organizations' concerns extend beyond the immediate impact of the bill. They see this as a broader issue of political rhetoric undermining public understanding of environmental issues. By framing environmental concerns as obstacles to progress, the Labour Party, they argue, risks alienating a significant segment of the population that holds strong environmental values. This strategy could prove counterproductive in the long run, potentially harming Labour's electoral prospects and undermining public trust in political leadership. The organizations are urging a course correction, calling for a balanced approach that respects both the urgent need for housing and the vital importance of protecting the natural environment upon which future prosperity depends. The battle lines are drawn, and the outcome will significantly shape the future of environmental protection in the UK. The clash highlights a critical need for constructive dialogue and evidence-based policymaking, rather than divisive rhetoric that pits development against the environment. The future of British nature, and arguably the nation's long-term prosperity, hangs in the balance.